Hi, I'm Gidon from technologyman.com. The EcoFlow Delta 2 has four 1800 watt AC outlets, super fast 1200 watt mains charging, two 100 watt USB power delivery outputs, and a 1024 watt hour long lasting LiFePro battery that is expandable up to 3040 watt hours. It has a very useful app to control it remotely and is surprisingly portable considering its spec. I can carry it with one hand. It's pretty good value too compared to similar units. You can check the current price down below. These power stations are perfect for power cuts, camping, travel and festivals, and around the house and out and about to charge all your tech. And the Delta 2 can charge up to 500 watts off solar panels alone when mains isn't available. I'll run through its capabilities and thoroughly test all its claims to help you decide if this is the right power station for you. And towards the end of the video, I'll compare it to other similar power stations I've tested. So let's take a closer look. Inside the box you get the power station itself, a mains charging cable, car charging cable and a DC 5521 to DC 5525 lead. There's also a multilingual user manual. There's no solar charging cable and no protective cover. It's disappointing that there's no solar charging cable. Apart from the cost of purchasing an additional cable, it can also be a little confusing for new users to understand exactly what cable they need. I'll cover this in more detail shortly. The Delta 2 has a 1024 watt hour LFP or LiFePro battery, and I was expecting it to be much heavier than it is. LFP batteries like this weigh more than equivalent standard lithium-ion batteries that use NMC or nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, but they support 3000 complete charge cycles compared to 500 to 1000 cycles for NMC batteries. The Delta 2 weighs 12 kilograms, only around 2 kilograms heavier than the lithium-ion based Jackery Explorer 1000, which has a similar capacity battery, and only 4 kilograms heavier than the 576 watt-hour EcoFlow River Max, also based on lithium-ion technology. It's easy to move around with handles on either side, but it's light enough to carry with just one handle. It's a fairly compact unit, you can see its dimensions on screen. A folding handle would have made it even more compact. Like the EcoFlow River Max I reviewed a while back, the Delta 2 is well built, made of mostly hard plastic. It does feel a little more rugged than other power stations I've looked at, with large, slightly rubberized feet front and rear that offer at least some protection as you move it around. There's still no waterproof rating, so you'll need to be careful using it outside or invest in their optional waterproof bag. The power station has a maximum output of 1800 watts, and EcoFlow offers a few examples of what you could run and for how long on their website. Anything from a car fridge for up to 32 hours to an electric grill for just shy of 1 hour. I'll have some real world examples shortly. The Delta 2 doesn't have the standard power station configuration. The display and ports are on the short ends of the unit. The front has the LCD display, two standard 12 watt USB ports and two blue 18 watt fast charging ports. Just below are two USB-C power delivery ports. Both these support a generous 100 watts of output simultaneously, which is a hugely useful configuration and not something I've seen before. So theoretically you could charge two of the latest 14-inch MacBook Pros at full speed at the same time. Even if you don't have these requirements currently, this does offer future-proofing for a significant purchase that you want to last for a long time. More and more devices use USB power delivery, which is slowly replacing cumbersome AC power bricks. Not just laptops, smartphones and tablets, but also drones and action cameras, etc. And these ports are also useful for charging smaller portable power banks that often support high-speed charging. Of course, even higher power 140 watt USB-C ports that could replace a 16-inch MacBook Pro charger would be even better. Around the back there's a combined solar and car XT60 input, the mains charging port and the overload protection switch. Without oversized plugs, this UK unit has four pure sine wave AC sockets with 1800 watts of total output that can briefly surge to 2700 watts. The US version has 6 outlets, but even 4 is very useful and twice what you get on the much larger Bluetti AC200P I reviewed a few months ago. Below the AC sockets are the DC outlets, the 12.6 volt 10 amp or 126 watt car outlet, and the two DC 5521 12.6 volt 3 amp or 38 watt outputs. All these outputs have their own power switch. You need to turn the unit on first with a short press of the power button, a long press turns it off. Then you need to turn on the USB, AC or DC subsystem afterwards. That's understandable for the AC subsystem, which will drain the battery even if nothing is plugged in, as I'll test shortly. But with USB devices, I found it a minor inconvenience having to remember to press this USB button whenever I wanted to charge my smartphone. I'd prefer the USB sockets just came on with the unit. You can sort of get around this though with the app, which I'll discuss shortly. Both sides of the unit have cooling vents with intake and exhaust fans on either side. Finally, there's a beefy extra battery port on one side of the unit to connect the optional additional battery to double the capacity. Or you can add the Delta Max's extra battery to triple the capacity. The extra battery costs almost as much as the Delta 2 itself, but does weigh around 2.5 kilograms less without all the additional electronics. You can't use the EcoFlow Power Kit batteries, unfortunately, which have a different connector. The top of the unit is flat with a curved lip around the edges. This is intended for stacking the extra battery on top, but is also useful for charging smaller gadgets without them rolling off. It would have been nice to see some wireless charging pads on top, like on the AC200P. And the unit is also missing any sort of LED light. I do find the floodlight on the Anker 757 I reviewed surprisingly useful. There are plenty of ports to add a light and a wireless charging pad, but it's nice having it built in. You can charge the power station with the mains cable, from a car outlet with a supplied car socket plug to XD60 cable, or via solar with optional solar panels. And EcoFlow sells their smart generator that runs on petrol. This can be controlled by the smartphone app and will automatically turn on to charge the Delta 2 when the battery is low. You could of course use any petrol generator to do this manually. The USB-C ports are only for output, and you're unable to charge via these ports unfortunately, like you can on the All Powers unit I looked at. One of the most impressive features of the Delta 2 is the charging speed. The Anker 757 I reviewed could charge its 1229 watt-hour battery at 1000 watts with just the mains lead, no massive AC adapter. The Delta 2 is up the ante and can charge at a whopping 1200 watts, again just using a standard IEC mains cable, often called a kettle lead in the UK. There is a Velcro tie on the cable with a warning that you should only charge a unit with this cable. Any 10 amp mains cable should be okay, but you're immediately below the fuse with anything less than 10 amps, so make sure you check the rating. EcoFlow claims the unit can charge its 1024 watt-hour battery from completely flat to 80% in 50 minutes, with a full charge taking 80 minutes. In my test, it reached almost 50% charge in 30 minutes from completely flat, 80% charge in just under 50 minutes, and 100% charge in just under 80 minutes. Pretty much exactly confirming EcoFlow's claims, and is very impressive. It does get very noisy charging at these high speeds. With a sound level meter 1 metre from the unit, I measured 58 decibels, with all the fans running at full speed. That was around 20 decibels louder than background noise in my office. Fortunately, you can use the excellent accompanying EcoFlow app to set the maximum charging speed. I found dropping this to a still pretty rapid 800 watts dropped the measurement by 10 decibels. A drop of 10 decibels equates roughly to a halving of the perceived noise, so a very noticeable reduction. And in general use, when you don't always need the super fast charging, it's probably a little better for the battery's longevity. There only seems to be 2 fan speeds. Even dropping the unit all the way down to 200 watts charging, the noise levels are the same. I imagine it would be possible to have the fan speed vary more smoothly with charging speed with a firmware update, and perhaps turn off completely at low charging speeds. I did check the Delta 2's temperatures when fast charging with the FLIR thermal imaging camera, and the design of the unit and the fans did a good job of keeping it cool, as you can see. The 2-colour 8cm LCD display on the Delta 2 is bright and clear and shows information on remaining charge time when it's charging and remaining run time when it's powering your devices. This estimate is adjusted in real time depending on input or output power. There's also the battery capacity displayed graphically and as a percentage, and icons that illuminate to show which ports are in use. This information is also available in the app, which can monitor the power station even away from home on a cellular connection if you connect the device over Wi-Fi. There is also an option to connect directly to the power station over Bluetooth when there's no Wi-Fi. Just tap on Use Without Internet when you're asked to select your Wi-Fi network. I've already covered adjusting AC charging speed under Settings in the app, and will mention other relevant options as I proceed through the review. But you can also turn off beeps, and I'd recommend making sure the firmware is up to date. The display is very clear indoors, but a little harder to see outdoors in bright sunlight. The unit charges at around 100 watts with a supplied cable via a 12-volt car outlet. So a full charge would take over 10 hours. You could also charge faster if your car has a 24-volt output, which I confirmed with my bench power supply charging the Delta 2 at 192 watts. You are limited to 8 amps, as you can see even with a bench supply set at 10 amps. This is set in the app and can't be increased, only lowered. I did increase the voltage all the way up to 60 volts and charged the unit at 480 watts, still limited to 8 amps. I tried charging by mains at the same time, but this isn't possible. It switches across to mains charging. The same applies if you use solar panels via the DC input. so you can't use a DC and AC input at the same time, which is possible on the Bluetti AC200P. But then direct mains charging on this unit is way faster than the Bluetti, so it's not necessary. The DC input automatically switches between car and solar charging. There's no manual setting in the app like on the EcoFlow River Max. You should be able to use its full 15 amp maximum input charging via solar. And like all the power stations I've tested, the Delta 2 has a built-in MPPT controller for more efficient solar charging. I tested solar charging with EcoFlow's 220 watt bifacial solar panel, in series with their 160 watt standard panel. Ideally I'd have two identical panels in series for the highest output, but I had only one of their newer 220 watt panels. Connecting solar panels in series, you add their voltages together, and in parallel you add the current for each panel. The voltage stays the same. Since these panels are around 20 volts, the 11 to 60 volt input range provides plenty of headroom for a series connection, which is also easier to set up without any additional adapters. It's autumn here in the UK and the weather is already pretty grim, but I did have a brief sunny spell to test solar charging. I had to use the MC4 to XT60 cable that came with the EcoFlow River Max, since nothing is provided with the Delta 2 or the 220 watt panel. Connecting two panels in series is easy. You connect a male and female connector together from each panel and the remaining connectors to the adapter cable that plugs into the back of the Delta 2. With the panels directed at the sun, I got around 230 watts, which isn't bad considering it was later in the afternoon and the end of October. I do find setting up EcoFlow's panels fiddly compared to other solar panels I've used, and the 220 watt bifacial panel is also pretty heavy at 9.5 kilograms, but it does have a trick up its sleeve. As its name suggests, this panel has solar panels on both sides. The front panel that should face the sun is 220 watts, and the rear panel is 155 watts. The rear side can use ambient light to increase performance by between 5 and 25%. Ideally you'd have something reflective underneath, not soggy Dartmoor moorland. And with the sun already low in the sky, there wasn't much ambient light to boost the performance. When the conditions are better, I plan to do a group test of all the panels I've accumulated, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss it. You don't have to use EcoFlow's panels, you can use whatever you have. And if you don't need these portable foldable panels, far cheaper options are available. For example, two of these 200 watt Renogy panels off Amazon in series will provide around 400 watts of output for about the same price as the EcoFlow 220 watt panel. These have standard MC4 connectors, and you then just need the MC4 to XT60 adapter for the Delta 2. In ideal conditions, the Delta 2 can charge at up to 500 watts with its 11 to 60 volt 15 amp input. So that would be 2 to 3 hours for a full charge. With my setup, or even just the one 220 watt panel in better conditions, it'd take approximately 6 to 7 hours to charge the unit. The Delta 2 has a substantial 1800 watt inverter built in and can power most household devices with its 4 AC outlets. This is quite an achievement considering the weight and size of the power station. I confirmed their pure sine wave output, which is important for sensitive electronics with the graphical multimeter. These outlets can surge briefly to 2700 watts and also support EcoFlow's X-Boost technology, which can power devices rated up to 2400 watts continuously by lowering the voltage. It's easier to understand with an example with this 2200 watt toaster and an energy monitor. With X-Boost off, the Delta 2 will run this toaster at full power for around a minute, then shut off with its overload protection kicking in. The voltage here in the UK is around 230 volts. With X-Boost on, I can run this toaster for as long as I need, but you'll notice the voltage drops to around 210 volts and the actual output drops to the Delta 2's true 1800 watt maximum output, and the toaster obviously won't toast as quickly. By default X-Boost is on, but I'd recommend turning it off and only switching it on as needed. Some devices may be sensitive to their voltage requirements, so I would only use it if you have to. For example, to run heating element based products like toasters and hairdryers, when there isn't another option. I could just switch this toaster to 2-slot mode, which is well within the rated output of the Delta 2. At least you can switch X-Boost off. On the Anker 757, it also reduced the voltage with devices exceeding its maximum output, but there's no way to turn this feature off. For the remaining tests, I left X-Boost turned off. Around the house as well as a toaster, I was able to run a 1550 watt hairdryer, an espresso coffee machine, and even a 2 kilowatt heater, which ran continuously at almost 1900 watts, above the Delta 2's 1800 watt maximum output. With the Delta 2's 1024 watt hour battery, you'd only be able to run this heater at full power for around 30 minutes. Running these high power devices, fan noise is quite noticeable. At full output, it's as noisy as when charging at full speed at around 58 decibels. But these fans are quieter at lower outputs than when charging, and turn off completely below around 100 watts, which is important if you're sleeping nearby. This might depend on the ambient temperature of the unit. My room is around 20 degrees centigrade. Out in the workshop, I tried various handheld and stationary power tools. The initial startup draw of some of these machines was too much for the unit, but I had no trouble running a Bosch angle grinder and a Festool router and circular saw, and it ran my Bosch 1800 watt sliding miter saw. It did run my record BS 350 14-inch bandsaw and Shepak TS 2000 table saw after a fashion. They started up but didn't run at full speed. My 3 kilowatt compressor overloaded the unit. The unit beeps and the AC subsystem turns off. Overload flashes in red on the display. You can immediately turn on AC again with its power button. It's important to turn off the AC subsystem when it's not needed. You can set a timeout in the app, but even on the default 12-hour timeout, the unit dropped from 100% to 83% without anything plugged in. That's around 1.4% per hour. The app lets you configure this timeout from 30 minutes up to 24 hours, or you can turn off the timeout completely, which is useful for running very low power devices, so long as you're able to easily top up the battery. I tested the DC outputs starting with a 12 volt car outlet, which has up to 10 amp output at 12.6 volts or 126 watts, which I confirmed with the load tester. Ramping this up to 13 amps set off the current overload protection. Using the same load tester, I confirmed the 3 amp maximum output of the 12.6 volt DC 5521 ports. I left this subsystem on for 12 hours with the battery at 100% and the battery remained at full capacity. So if you have tech that runs directly off DC, it makes more sense to try and use these ports. You can set a timeout for this subsystem too in the app. All these DC outputs are regulated. The 6 USB ports should cover most of your needs. There are 2 standard 12 watt 2.4 amp USB ports and 2 18 watt fast charging ports that support Qualcomm Quick Charge 3.0. I tested all these ports with a USB load tester and got over 2.5 amps at 12 volts or 30 watts out of the fast charging ports, before overcurrent protection kicked in, so a fair bit better than spec'd. The 2 USB-C ports both support a full 100 watts of USB power delivery output. This portable jump starter can charge at the full 100 watts, and I'm charging a Lenovo Chromebook with the other port, which can charge at up to 45 watts over USB power delivery. One nice feature of this power station is if you change the unit timeout in the app to never, the USB ports remain active even when supplying tiny amounts of power, just like a mains wall charger. Some power stations shut off their USB ports when a device is fully charged, which is no good if you want to keep a device topped up ready to go. For example, this Olight torch has a reassuring green light on the magnetic charger when it's fully charged. If the USB output is shut off, you need to reinsert the charging lead to check if the torch is fully charged. The Delta 2 also has a UPS or uninterruptible power supply function, which is a very useful feature I've really come to rely upon. When the power station is charging off mains, any mains devices you plug in will bypass the power station and run directly off mains until there's a power cut, when they'll switch across to the power station's battery. EcoFlow quotes a 30 millisecond switchover, which I found good enough for a desktop computer, but they warn against using this feature for data servers that might require 0 millisecond switching. All 13 ports support pass-through charging and can be used while the unit is charging. Finally, I measured the usable capacity of the 1024 watt-hour built-in battery. I ran a heater via an energy monitoring plug at around 1000 watts until the power station turned off. The heater ran for 59 minutes and 11 seconds and consumed 932 watt-hours. Power stations like this will always have conversion losses, and anything over 80% is pretty good. The EcoFlow works out at 932 watt-hours divided by 1024 watt-hours, which is around 91% and an excellent result. I did a similar test using the DC output with a 10 amp electronic load attached. I measured 870 watt-hours, which is still a very respectable 85% efficiency. The EcoFlow Delta 2 is the best portable power station I've tested so far in its class. It's great to see a long-lasting LFP battery and reassuring that EcoFlow backs this up with a 5-year warranty. The modular battery system is a great idea. The 1024 watt-hour battery will probably be enough for most people and importantly keeps the weight and price down. This is far more portable than any other LFP power station I've tested, and with all its features it's pretty good value too. If you need extra capacity, it's easy to add another battery, and it's more convenient to move around 2 lighter batteries compared to 1 giant heavy battery. There aren't many features missing. It doesn't have any wireless charging pads like the Bluetti AC200P, or a built-in light like many other units I've tested, but more than makes up for it with a number of useful ports, the large 1800 watt inverter, the insanely fast 1200 watt charging, and the genuinely useful smartphone app. My only real criticism is the fan noise when charging at full speed and powering more demanding devices. They do keep the unit cool and hopefully preserve the battery. I would have liked to have seen an MC4 to XT60 cable included too. If you know you're going to need more capacity, Bluetti AC200P works out a little cheaper, already having a 2000 watt-hour battery and has a slightly larger 2000 watt inverter, even more flexible solar charging options and built-in wireless charging pads. But it's over twice the weight, charges much slower with a bulky AC adapter, and doesn't have a smartphone app. The Anker 757 costs a little more, but has a slightly larger battery and a built-in light. But it's considerably heavier and doesn't have a smartphone app. The Jackery Explorer 1000 is about the same price as the Delta 2 with a similar sized battery. It has a standard lithium-ion battery which won't last as long, but that does make it the lightest option at around 10 kilograms. Jackery power stations are very user-friendly and their solar panels are by far the easiest to set up and use, even though they do use a less standard 7.9mm adapter. But the Jackery is looking a little out of date compared to the others, with slow charging, a rather basic LCD screen and very limited USB-C outputs. I have full reviews of the Anker, Bluetti and the smaller Jackery units. There'll be links on screen and down below in the description if you're interested. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the Delta 2? Does it have all the features you need? If you have it, how do you find it? And as always, if you have any questions, please ask. I read every comment and will do my best to respond. I do hope you found this video useful. Please like the video if you did. I'm releasing videos every week on the latest technology and how to get the most out of it, so please make sure you subscribe. And don't forget to tap the bell icon if you want to get notified as soon as a new video gets uploaded. Thanks for watching.